Hi there, and welcome to the Play Therapy Circle. Before we begin, please note this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not provide therapeutic advice, and listening does not create a client therapist relationship. All views expressed are my own, and any case examples shared have been de identified to protect privacy. If you're seeking personal support, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional in your area. Hi, and welcome to an episode of the Play Therapy Circle. I'm Kylie Ellison, a therapist, clinical supervisor, and play therapy trainer, and I'm so grateful you're here. This podcast is a space for thoughtful, soulful conversations about child-centered therapy, play-based work, and what it means to show up with presence and compassion, both for our clients and for ourselves. Whether you're a seasoned play therapist, a student just starting out, or someone deeply passionate about working with children, you belong here. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Play Therapy Circle. I'm your host, Kylie Ellison, and I am so glad you are here. Gosh, it is late. I feel like I said that to you guys the last episode. I'm not gonna lie. This is recording at a very late time of the day. I actually did a bit of a day in the life vlog for our social media today, and watching it back I was like, gosh, I do a lot in a day. Like, it's not until you take that helicopter view that you're like, gosh, things are busy at the moment. So if you're feeling busy, if you're feeling like your day goes so fast and you have no idea where the time went, I see you. I definitely understand that. So welcome back. We are at episode 4. Can I just say the people that have reached out and given such wonderful feedback on how valuable you have found this podcast so far is so amazing. It just makes my heart so happy. This is really a passion project around getting child-centered play therapy out in another format, being podcasts. And I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying it. And I hope that this episode is another good one for you guys. So what are we talking about today in episode 4, you ask? We are going to talk about the role of the therapist in child-centered play therapy. And I think for myself, 10 years down the line in practice, I think that this is actually one of the most, if not the most important element of the work we do as child-centered play therapists in the playroom. I don't think you can truly be authentic as a play therapist if you don't bring your sense of self, your sense of congruence. And we're going to talk about those key tenets of child-centered play therapy in a second. But that importance of bringing yourself into the playroom to make sure that you are able to foster a supportive space for children to be able to really talk about some of the most difficult things, either through their experiences or their feelings that they have been through. They need to feel that sense of safety and trust to do that. So I guess if you're a beginning play therapist, if I was talking to my beginning self in this profession, I think I would tell myself, and I share with you guys as beginning play therapists listening along, maybe one of the things that I wished I'd done early in my career was give myself permission to take things slowly and to remind myself that my presence in the playroom is so reparative for children. And I think that's something that we don't, in our beginning phases of our careers, think about. But 10 years down the line, I really am reflecting on that a lot more, because obviously, as you go through and you gain that experience seeing clients, I like to think of it as building that memory bank or that catalog of experiences that we can relate back to when we're thinking about those clients, or as my supervisor, Dr. Jodie Mullen, shout out to you, Jodie, would often say to me that her clients are her teachers. And I might have mentioned that in a previous podcast already. But I really resonate with that because I think every child that comes into the playroom teaches us something about our practice, about ourselves, and that reparative aspect that happens in that interaction with another, and especially when it happens between a therapist and a client. So it's so important. And I want to give you guys that permission to take that pressure off a little bit, to get those basic beginning level skills of CCPT. They're so important right? But I also want to encourage you to consider what you bring in terms of your connection and your work to align yourself with those tenets of CCPT, not just the skills. So those tenets, as those of you who have studied child-centered play therapy would know well, is empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard. And certainly when I'm connecting with supervisees, that's also a big component of the reflections that I have with them, is how are we aligning with those values and those tenets of CCPT? Because I think they have such a healing aspect to the work that we do. And it is remiss of us as CCPT practitioners if we lose sight of that as well. So I encourage you guys to hold that in mind every time you walk into a playroom with a client to start your session. How am I showing through my verbal communication, my non-verbal communication, my presence, those really important elements of child-centered play therapy being empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard. So I want to talk a little bit about each of them now, because I think that sometimes we can read them in a textbook, or we can be taught those tenets and I guess not necessarily understand how they translate into practice. And I think that one of the ways that I have conceptualized, the first one being unconditional positive regard, I think that oftentimes, again, kids that we work with, clients that we work with in the playroom are so incredible in showing us the world of a child and their experiences and how they understand life, and constantly teach us along the way. So I think that unconditional positive regard comes to mind, especially when you have clients that you don't necessarily connect with in the beginning. I think that is something that isn't necessarily talked about either. But again, I want to give you guys permission out there practicing in the space. If you are struggling in the beginning sessions to connect with a client, my message to you is keep going. Because I think that oftentimes there's an element of what that child brings to the playroom that is so important for our own professional development and learning. And some of the clients that I've struggled with the most in immediately connecting with have been the clients that have taught me the most as well in terms of my practice. So I think that in the beginning, if you have a client where they present pretty much from the beginning with some pretty high levels of physical aggression or aggression towards you, or cheating, I guess, in terms of rules in the games they're playing, there's so many ways that kids present in that way where it challenges our unconditional positive regard. I want to give you that reassurance that it is one of those situations most of the time, and I obviously can't talk to every client example, but only to my experience. And what I've learned is by trusting the process, and we talk about that all the time in child-centered play therapy. We can absolutely doubt ourselves. We can doubt the process. We can doubt our ability to support a child. We can doubt whether the child is going to make a lot of gains or progress in play therapy. And oftentimes I find when that doubt creeps in is when we lean back into some of those other skills we've learned other than CCPT. And I think that is such a incredible teaching moment for us if we take that time, especially in, say, clinical supervision, to really reflect on what's happening in that space, what is coming up for you, and how can you have those tenets of CCPT, including unconditional positive regard, moving forward with that client. So I always see it as a room for growth. I think children are always, as I said, teaching us things about our own practice. And I welcome that opportunity to continue to expand and grow in my skill set. And I offer that invitation to each of you listening as well. I think that then that tenet ties in with the second one being congruence. So again, if we are feeling tested, if we are feeling challenged as play therapists in the playroom, I think that ability for us to be congruent is often really tough. And when I say congruent, what I mean by that is when we connect with a child, when we walk into the playroom, when we welcome them back, and we're there to support them to begin their session, it is so important for us to be able to have a space where we're clear of mind, we're present, we're listening both to the verbal and non-verbal communication of the child, and we're readily, emotionally, mentally, physically available to that child to provide that support in that therapy session, whether it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour. For that time that we're in the playroom with the child, truly being ourselves, being authentic. I lean into that a lot. And I think as the years have gone by, I think authenticity, especially with our older population of children that we work with, is absolutely essential. Children, and this is why I love working with kids, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but certainly for me, I find working with kids, they are clever. No, they're so really perceptive and able to pick up on nuances and nonverbal communication along the way, and really can tell quickly if you are somebody that will hold the space and be able to provide safety and trust in that therapeutic relationship. I really feel like that's one of the incredible things about kids is they don't need a filter, but they also have an uncanny knack of knowing if you're not being authentic. So again, bring your whole self to the playroom. That's really important. There's a difference between doing that though and say becoming overwhelmed or consumed by our own needs in the playroom. And that's a very different scenario because in CCPT, we hold that space for the child. But I think that if you can bring your congruent self, your authentic self into the playroom, that's so important and it goes such a long way. And I really was reminded of that a few times this week in the playroom and with the kids that I have connected with. The importance of silences, guys. That's a hard one, right? To sit in the uncomfortable. I lean so heavily these days into psychodynamic psychotherapy, so I love silences, but it might not be your jam, right? So I recognize that is difficult for some of our colleagues and folk in the circle family to do, and that's okay. We're all bringing our unique selves to the playroom. But I think if we are able to center ourselves and ground ourselves so that we can be that congruent self in the playroom, that's super important. For those of you who have seen a picture of my playrooms, I often share them, say, via our socials page. And one of the things that I have loved over the years having is a pink rug in my playroom. And I don't think that comes as any surprise when my logo is a pink glasses, because that's my vibe. But I find that rug so helpful in being able to sit at the beginning of the session, because I always sit on the floor. And I have incredible teachers in the past who have shown me the importance of having that beginning entry ritual or routine. So one of those things is that I sit and really put my hands on the ground, ground myself in that rug to help me be able to focus and to be able to connect with the child. So I encourage you to think about the ways that you enter the playroom, how you are able then to connect yourself to the space so that you feel you can be authentic and congruent, because it's also really important. And we're going to spend an episode talking about self-care. And oh God, I don't even like that word, self-care. We're going to look at taking care of you in the playroom in terms of your supports outside of CCPT. So we'll talk about that over the course of the podcast. But I guess that when we come into that space, being able to be present is so important. So I'd love you to have a think about the ways that you enter the playroom and connect so you can hold that tenet dear. The last one we talk about is empathy. And I think that it's a really great tenet in terms of so much of the work that we do as CCPT practitioners in the playroom. And I'm always reminded when I'm thinking of the definition of empathy, and I don't know if this rings true for anyone else listening, but there is an incredible short cartoon info video, I guess is what you call it, on empathy versus sympathy by Dr. Brené Brown. I highly recommend it. It's on YouTube. It's only a couple of minutes long, but I highly recommend it because one of the main kind of messages she talks about in that video is the idea of sympathy versus empathy, and sympathy trying to relate to an experience of your own, whereas empathy being more about recognizing and validating what's happening for that person in front of you who is sharing their story, and really reflecting, as she says, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but something along the lines of, I don't know what to say, but I'm just so glad you told me. And I think that if we can convey that in our nonverbal and verbal communication in the playroom, obviously using our skills of CCPT to do that, I think that's incredibly powerful. And I often say to supervisees and reflect that oftentimes for the children that we work with, they don't necessarily have a space like that in any other part of their life in any given week. So we literally provide this space for kids to be able to process those big emotions, to have them held, to have them validated, to have them seen, and to feel that sense of empathy from us. Gary Landreth talks about his famous line around, I hear you, I see you, I understand and I care, as those extensions of those tenets. And I truly believe in every reflection that we have in the playroom that we hold that statement really dear. I hear you, I see you, I understand and I care. And I think that's really powerful for a lot of the kids that we work with who maybe haven't necessarily experienced that in other settings. And what an incredible gift that child and us as the play therapist share in that moment when we get to do that with children. So those tenets are incredibly important and I think really form the backbone of child-centered play therapy, which is the whole point of us going through each of these episodes together and unpacking every aspect of CCPT, because there's so much there, right? But I think one of the messages that I really wanted to convey around this topic, and what I love the most about CCPT, I love so much about it, right? But one of the things I love is the fact that it is non-directive. And I think that makes us a unique approach to engaging with kids and often requires education of community members and stakeholders to understand how play therapy works, and specifically child-centered play therapy. But I have truly seen over the last 10 years working with so many different kids that if we allow the child to take the lead, truly take the lead in terms of that agenda of what they need to talk about, they will heal through play. And it is just so powerful. Like where else can kids do that and really feel that healing capacity? It's incredible work and it's such a privilege and an honor. So I think that one of the byproducts, or one of the things that I have seen really grow in terms of especially my practice when I'm applying those principles and tenets of CCPT around congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard, is that I find it then fosters a space for emotional regulation, for patience, for children's emotions to be held in the space, to provide a reflective capacity, and really give us something to lean back on and to really find our grounding in when it becomes really challenging or uncertain in the playroom. If we truly believe in these tenets and we truly espouse to CCPT, we hold dear and hold at our core our unwavering belief in the child, that they are the experts, they know what they need to talk about, and they know how to do it in their time. And I think that's often one of the biggest challenges is that time constraint. And we know for various reasons those time constraints can sometimes arise and become present. But ultimately, kids are on their own schedule time. And isn't that incredible? That they know how much time they need to be in the playroom and the work that they need to do and how long that's going to take. And the sooner we listen to that, the easier it becomes. It truly. And I think it's one of those things where if you are more used to more directive work or having more of a prescription to your sessions, it truly is a moment where you choose to release that and trust in the child and trust in what they need to show us and tell us. And as soon as you give that pressure off yourself, like I remember in the early days, realizing that I didn't need to be the expert. I didn't need to have all the answers. I didn't need to have a bunch of handout sheets to go through with the child in their session. They are coming with what they need to talk about. And my job is to hold that space, to provide that reflection for them and help them to heal through play. How cool is that? So cool, you guys. So I think when we have that innate belief in children's capacity for growth and self-direction, we then move away from problem solving, questions, and those more directive approaches. We really are able to offer a space for kids where they can grow and heal and move through things at their pace. So I want to give you a couple of takeaways, you guys, before I pose my question to you for the week, because it's good to have a question. I want to thank you guys for checking out our socials. Before I go to the takeaways, we have our Instagram account at the Play Therapy Circle podcast. So please check us out. We have started posting a weekly question related to our episodes. So I would love you guys to share your reflections on those posts each week. We would love to connect with our Circle fam. So that would be great. But I want to emphasize some of those key messages for those of you beginning out in the space, or even if you've been working for some time and you feel like you just need that reminder. That's what I'm here for. That's what this podcast is all about. So you're welcome. You're welcome. So what are those takeaways, guys? The therapist's way of being is central to CCPT. When we talk about way of being, it's about our authenticity, our congruence, us being present in the playroom and facilitating that space for growth. So cool. Safety, trust, and attunement comes through presence, not technique. I want to say that again. Safety, trust, and attunement emerge through presence, not technique. So really, I want you guys to be able to embrace who you are and what you bring to the playroom in terms of your presence to help support the clients that you work with, because it's so important. The therapeutic process is, and progress in CCPT is relational, not linear. So if you are feeling that pressure around those time constraints, around expectations from stakeholders, absolutely check in with your clinical supervisor and work through those strategies and ideas so that you can stay congruent with CCPT. See what I did there? I bet you guys like that. Connecting the dots, guys. Self-awareness, and that kind of links into my last point. Self-awareness and supervision are so important for really staying true to the CCPT modality. And I feel like 10 years down the line, that absolutely, without a doubt, has been my journey as well. Maintaining that self-reflection, maintaining that regular supervision, connecting with like-minded practitioners in the space, connecting with your Play Therapy Circle fam. That's who we are. We're CCPT practitioners and we welcome you into the space. I think being able to connect with what makes sense for you and what is most aligned for you will help you find your journey and will help you find where you're going to go and what you want to do. So I think that I always say in everyone that I connect with, especially as my supervisees, I will say to them, this didn't happen by chance. We have connected because there's something around CCPT that connects deeply for both of us. And that's why we're here. And that's why you're listening right now, because there's something about CCPT that resonates for you. So I want that to be our question for the week, you guys. And I so would love to hear from you. So please jump onto our socials page, Instagram at the Play Therapy Circle podcast, and tell me, what is it that most aligns? What is it about CCPT that most aligns or resonates for you? And I feel like I've got so many, so I definitely won't put all my answers because there won't be enough room. But I would love to hear from you guys. What is it about CCPT that resonates for you and aligns with you? And what keeps you going? What keeps you having that passion for this space? Because I know for me, it's everything. It's all about that relationship, meeting and working with families, connecting with co-workers and colleagues in this space, and just truly feeling like I am doing the work I was meant to do here in this life. And so I'm so grateful. And that's why I'm so grateful that you stuck around and listened to this entire episode, because we are 23 minutes in, you guys, and my plan was 10. So if anyone who knows me well knows that is generally what happens. So I want to thank you for sticking around. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being here, because you being here means so much. I'm hopeful that you found this useful and helpful in your work. And we will drop another episode next Friday. We're here every week on a Friday. Not going to lie, it's late at night. So I've recorded this late, but I usually get that deadline by Friday. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening. And I'll catch you again next time. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of the Play Therapy Circle. If anything resonated with you today, I'd love it if you could follow the podcast, share it with a colleague, or leave a short review. It really helps others find our circle. And if you have a topic or question you'd love me to explore, I'd love to hear from you. This space is for you, and I want it to feel like a conversation. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, you belong here.